everybody? It is your travel agent David, and today I am going to go over our Trafalgar 10-day Capitals of Scandinavia tour that we took the end of July going into August. Now, this trip was great because I've always wanted to go to Norway, Sweden, Finland. I never really heard of Estonia, so I decided to take the optional excursion to go to Estonia, and I'm so glad I did. And then I've never been to Denmark as well, and I was really interested in going to Copenhagen. So let's get into the 10-day tour with Trafalgar, going over the capitals of Scandinavia. Now, for all you that are history buffs and know geography very well, yes, I know Finland and Estonia aren't in Scandinavia, but they threw it in there. It's all Nordic. It's all Vikings. It's all yar. So let's get into going over this excursion, shall we? So we flew in from Amsterdam and came into Copenhagen. We were in Amsterdam for our 12-day Iceland to Ireland cruise. Then we spent a day in Amsterdam, and then we flew to Copenhagen. So if you're really looking to enjoy Europe, I really recommend that you try and do those two things together because you will not regret it. And if you really have a lot of time, I would recommend doing that 12-day cruise and then flying into London and catching Trafalgar's 28-day European vacation, where you go from London to Italy, everywhere in between and below and above. It's fantastic. And if you can specifically ask for your travel director, ask for Breck. You'll thank me later. Now, when we got into Copenhagen, we met our travel director, Lass, and that guy is awesome. Now, one thing that I liked about Lass is he's from Denmark. He's from Copenhagen. He lives like just a few miles from the hotel that we stayed at. So when you're taking a tour through a place like, Copenhagen, through Scandinavia, it's really cool to have somebody that's been there. They experience it. They know the culture. They know how everything works. And that just added to the experience. So, Lass, if you're watching, thank you very much for making Hees and I 10 days in Europe that much more special. So I appreciate you. So we got to Copenhagen, got to the airport, we met Lass, and then we got onto our coach and went off to the hotel. So later on that day, we met with the group. We had about 4 hours from the time we got picked up to the time that we met everybody together to go on our first included optional experience. So Hees and I, we walked around Copenhagen a little bit, got some food, and just sat down and enjoyed watching the little pier that they had. You see all the charter boats coming in and out for all the tours, looking at all the old architecture. Is really nice. If you do fly your drone, there's a lot of banned places you can fly your drone, but I was able to find a couple places near that pier, going up over to where the old stock exchange burned. That area is pretty well open, so you can get a good shots of the sunrise and sunset back there. It's really nice. But we went back to the hotel and we did our included optional experiences, where we went to Agmangfall. And I know I'm going to say that wrong, so sorry, Lass. But Agmangfall is a nature reserve, and Lass is actually part of a small group of people that were trying to protect it from being overdeveloped. So they've succeeded for the most part in making sure that this nature reserve stayed a nature reserve. And one thing I like about Trafalgar is they always like to try and bring in small little things from the communities that we go to that other tour companies may overlook. They call it Make Travel Matter. They try and get you immersed into the community and the culture more so than a lot of the other tour operators, which I really like, and that's why I came back for my second tour with Trafalgar. Now, the second day, we went around and we took a bus tour for a couple hours around town. The travel guide that came with us showed us a lot of cool things. We even got to see the Little Mermaid statue. And everybody from Copenhagen will tell you it is the most overrated tourist attraction in the world, and maybe even in the galaxy. And, well, they're right. It is literally a bronze statue of a naked woman sitting on a rock. And apparently her head's been cut off a couple times. It's been there for a while, and people just continue to mess with it. So the whole part of that was going through and meeting a Danish host, a local specialist, seeing the Christianborg Palace. That was really cool too. We got to see the guards doing their thing. We actually got to see the Queen come through. She snuck in through the back, so we just got to see the tail end of her nice little luxury vehicle. Then we went and looked at this cool fountain. And it was really cool. We got to see a lot of nice things, and we ended really close to the hotel, so it gave us the opportunity to walk around a little bit and go back to the hotel before we went to do our next experience. Now, while we were in Copenhagen, we did stay at the Phoenix Copenhagen, which is a really nice hotel, really nice. So it was probably one of the nicer hotels that we stayed at on this tour. On day one, we did have a group dinner that was included. It was there in the hotel. There's a restaurant area down there, and we had a very delicious Denmark meal. So it was really nice. Now, every day that we were there, we got breakfast. So breakfast was included for day two. Other than that, we had to take care of all of our own meals. Now, they offered three different included and optional experiences. So we had the Copenhagen city tour, which was included. They had the Green Hills and Hig excursion, which is an optional experience. So you get to go to the Copenhagen Hill, where it's like a ski mountain that got put into this large trash incinerator building. It's really cool. I don't know how to explain it. It's like this big place. All the garbage trucks come in. They burn the trash to make electricity to power the city. I want to say it provides electricity to 500,000 people. But you can go take an elevator to the top for free. You can climb it for free. There's a bar up there. And then afterwards, we went to this little village where we had dinner. It was really cool. They have a little thing, this little game. I forgot what it's called. Sorry, Lass, if you're watching this, I apologize. But they basically hide something in the food, and then the person that finds it, they get a prize. So I didn't find it, but I didn't win a prize. But after that, we went back to the hotel and just enjoyed the evening. So day 3 was our trip to Oslo. So that was really cool because we took a ferry from Denmark into Sweden. Then we went into Sweden for a little bit and before we got into Norway, and then we went off to Oslo. Now, when we stayed in Oslo, we stayed at the Scandic Soli. We had breakfast was included there. So we got to travel through the scenic countryside and just kind of see some of Sweden and some of Norway. It was kind of a rest day by the time we got there because it's kind of late by the time we got there, about 4:30, somewhere around there, I think. And then on day 4, we had breakfast at the hotel. We got to do an Oslo city tour, which was really cool. We had a local specialist taking us around. And then they have the optional experience of above and beyond the Oslo fjord. So we did that, and we got to go around the fjord. Now, the fjords on the eastern side are not like the fjords on the western side. So if you're looking for like big, huge fjords and seeing a bunch of nature like that, waterfalls, etc., you're not going to see that on this one because this is on the eastern side. Those are the western side. So you can surely go on a Trafalgar tour that will take you through the western side of the fjords, and Lass even does those as well. But the ship that we were on, it was electric. It was really cool. It was very updated. You go outside, you can sit inside, you can go up to the top deck. It was very nice. It took about 2 hours. So if it had been a 3-hour tour, I would have got worried like we were Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. But it was nice because we got right into town, got onto the ferry, got off the ferry, and then we were kind of on our own. So we got to explore a little bit more. And then one thing that's very interesting about Norway, about Oslo, is the... I guess they don't have like a dress code when you go into the water. So they have these sauna boat things out there. So it's just like a little raft with a wood shack on it and some stacked up wood in the back. And I asked somebody what it was, and they're like saunas. So they're just float. You can go over there, you pay to sit in the sauna, you get it for like 2 hours. You can go and it'll take you through the fjord and come back. But apparently you can hang out in there naked, and when you're done with your sauna and you want to cool down, you can just hop out of the sauna naked and jump into the water. So if you're looking at the saunas, just be prepared that you may see naked people hopping in. Now, if you've watched Friends, just remember when the guys are getting back out, shrinkage happens, okay? So day 5, we went to Stockholm. So when we got to Stockholm, we stayed at the Elite Palace Hotel in Stockholm. What was really cool is we went to an ice bar. And what was even cooler is when we got there, it was Hyun's birthday. So we'll just stick with 21. It was her 21st birthday. So she got to go into an ice bar. It is the oldest ice bar in the world. And she got to enjoy some libations by wearing a big parka and freezing her off. So that was really cool. And then we went, while we were driving before we got to Stockholm, we had a Be My Guest experience. So we got to enjoy some nice dining with Nicholas and Anna. They bought this building right when COVID happened, and so nobody could come and eat. So they restored it, and Anna is an interior decorator, and she did a phenomenal job with that. So please check it out in my individual day tour videos that are out. And we had a nice meal. Because Nicholas is a award-winning chef. Like, they have a wall with just all of his awards, and he's like number one, an occasional number 2, but pretty much number 1. And I would say at least 2 or 3 dozen different categories that were on the wall. And then we did do a scenic drive past Lake Vansholm. Sorry, I'm trying to go off of my memory. But it was pretty cool because we got to go see the lake and all the scenery, and it was very like Swedish. It was this great Swedish experience. So day 6, we were in Stockholm. We got to do a few things there while we were there. So we went to the city hall, and that was included. And that place is amazing. It is amazing because that's where they hold the Nobel Prize ceremony, or not the ceremony, but like the dinner and the ball are there, and it's just gold gilded. There's just the best mosaics and stuff like that. You've got to check this. If you haven't seen the video already, you got to check that out next, because that city hall, it is phenomenal. It's more like a museum than a city hall. And then we got to take a Stockholm city tour, which is pretty cool. And then we just got some free time around Stockholm. And then we went to go see the coolest ship ever. So we went to go to see the Vasa. The Vasa is this old ship that King made. He had it built. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the Vasa, and it's drawing my attention away. He wanted it bigger because his cousin had a double-decked gun ship, and nobody had the fortitude to say, "Hey, if we do this, the ship's not going to be balanced, so we're going to have to do this or that, or we can't do it." So they just kept building and building because they wanted the king happy. Well, they got about 15 minutes out on the water after it got commissioned, and then it sank. It tipped over and it sank. And it sat there for over 300 years. And somebody found it, and they pulled it up. And because of the condition of the water, the ship was like 97, 98% intact. So they raised it, and they built this building around it, and turn it into this museum, and it is just phenomenal. Like, you can't even begin to understand how big that ship really is, and like how intricate the carvings are and all the detail into that ship. It's just insane. Now, when you go there, it's going to be packed. It is like the tourist attraction is huge. And we went with a group, so we got to go through the group line. When we came out, the line was hundreds of people long for people that were in a group. So if you're going to go to see the Vasa and you're on a tight timeline, I really recommend you try and find a way to find a group and go in with a group or get there when they open, because it was just insane. But that is definitely worth it. They have all these different levels you can go on, so you can look at the ship basically from the top down. You can walk right underneath of it. It's insane. It's cool. So when we got done with Stockholm, we took a overnight ferry to Helsinki. Now, when I was looking at, we're going to take a ferry. Cool. We're going to sleep on a ferry. Cool. I didn't expect much. I expected a ferry. This ferry is like a cruise ship that carries cars. They have several dining options. They have a casino. They have a bar. They have a nightclub. Oh, yeah. And unfortunately for us, our cabin was right above the nightclub. And if you get the cabin that's right above the nightclub, or a cabin that's above the nightclub, just know that you'll hear till 2:45 in the morning. Funny story, I got tired of listening to it. So I told Heejin, I was like, I'm going to go down there and find out when they turn this stuff off, because this is nuts. I got to get some sleep. This is about 2:40 in the morning. So by the time I get down there, I go to the bartender. I'm like, hey, I was like, what time do y'all turn this music off? And he's like, in about 15 seconds. I'm like, what? He's like, in about 15 seconds. He's like, why? I was like, well, I'm in the cabin above. And I was like, why is it in 15 seconds? He's like, music stops at 2:45. Well, I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm up, so let me go see if the northern lights might be out. Go out, take some photos, because I couldn't see it with my eyes. No northern lights. Get back to the cabin. Music stopped. He's just like, what did you do? I said, I went over to the DJ. I grabbed all of his stuff. I threw it on the ground. I stopped up and down. I said, it's 2:45 in the morning. Stop it. And she's like, looked at me, because that would be something I would probably likely do. But then she's like, really? I was like, no, the music stopped at 2:45. I just got there when it had about 15 seconds left before it stopped. So, funny story to not a funny situation. But if you're going to go and eat there, I really recommend that if you haven't gotten the buffet in your voucher, you don't go there. Do not go there. Go find some specialty dining and eat there. Go grab a sandwich from the little deli or whatever. It costs us, almost 100 euros for the two of us to go eat at some rundown Golden Corral. So I think that's the worst part about it. It's overcrowded. All the tourists in Europe are insanely rude. It is insane. I've never seen so many rude tourists. Like, the local people, very friendly. It's all the Europeans and Asians that are coming in, and they're just like so rude. And they were just like pushing through and cutting through and doing all this other stuff, and they bump you out of the way so they go get food, and it's just insane. I'm surprised there wasn't a food fight. So don't eat the buffet. Eat one of the specialty restaurants. When I didn't even know how much a buffet was, I said, I'd like two, and I gave them my card, and they're like, it's like 99 euros or whatever. I'm like, when I was looking at specialty restaurants, it was like 25, 30 euros for a plate or whatever, depending on what you wanted. So it's definitely cheaper to go eat at those specialty restaurants than the buffet, for sure. But other than that, it was all right. It was all right. Excuse me. When we got to Helsinki, we got in there about 10 o'clock or so, got on the bus. And here's what the other thing I like about it. Trafalgar, they're very like a white gloved service, if you will. You put your bags out, they come pick them up, they magically deliver to your room. They did the same thing. We put all the bags on the bus. They took care of getting them onto the ferry, and they got them off the ferry for us and took them right to the hotel. We didn't have to wait for a bag or nothing. Get right on the bus, go cruise around Helsinki. So when we got to Helsinki, we got to go do this little tour where we went around Helsinki. It was really nice. And then we went to this castle, Stockholm Castle. And then what was nice is we drove out there. We stopped in this little park. They have the royal gooses. Yeah, if you're watching last, I hope that got you a little chuckle. Somebody saw a bunch of geese out there and they called them royal gooses. But he saw these royal gooses, mices, I don't know. Walked around this garden, got to see some cool stuff. There's like this little, it looked like an Asian temple, like a Buddhist temple that was out there that one of the kings had made for his queen, because she liked that kind of architecture. They have a theater out there, very nice gardens. Nothing like Chambord Palace or the Palace of Versailles. Pretty nice. The fountains weren't on, so I couldn't tell, what it would truly look like. But we got there in time to go see the changing of the guard. So I got that on video as well, which is really cool. So they handled the changing of the guard a little bit different than my experience of changing of the guard in the military. It was a little bit more of a block check. They had everybody stand up. The officer of the day, or whatever they call them, walked around them real quick and then dismissed them. There was no uniform inspections or nothing like that. And then they went out and they changed positions with the guards that were out there. So that was pretty cool to see. Then we had fika. So fika is something that they created to kind of reduce injuries. So what was happening is they noticed that a lot of work site accidents were happening just before lunch and towards the middle of the day, the end of the day, between getting off and lunch. So in order to combat that, the businesses created fika. So fika is just a fancy word for a coffee break. So where you have coffee, you have tea, you have some cake or whatever, but depending on where you go, the company will provide it for you, or they rotate around the employees who would bring in the stuff for the fika. And it's considered rude if I came to you and said, hey, would you like to have fika? If you declined it and you didn't have a good reason, that's considered rude. So I guess the code is, if you ask somebody for fika twice and they say no both times, you can just assume that they don't like you and don't want to spend any time with you. But once they started introducing fika, or these little 15-minute coffee breaks in the middle of the morning and the middle of the afternoon, injuries at the workplace dropped. So now the whole country does fika. So that's pretty cool. We got this little cinnamon roll and some tea or coffee, and it was just like a nice little experience. So when we were done with that, we went back to the hotel, hung around there for a little bit, walked around town, got some Helsinki, Finland paraphernalia to send home, and then we took the optional experience to go to a chocolate factory. Now, I don't know if they're offering it again. We were the first ones to do the chocolate factory excursion. It's the chocolate factory in Countryside. I would highly recommend that you don't do it for a couple of reasons. One, you have to pay for it because it's an optional experience. Two, when you go there, if you're going to go to Estonia the next day, you basically have zero time in Helsinki, maybe 2 hours, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. You don't have a lot of time, basically, is what I'm trying to get to. And when you go to the chocolate factory, we didn't know this. I don't know if Trafalgar didn't know this or whatnot, but you don't see the chocolate being made. You don't go into the factory. You come into this little gift shop area. They take you to a conference room. They run through a video of the history of Fasa chocolate, which is really cool. It's very interesting history. Not downplaying that at all. And then when you're done, they took us to this greenhouse, and they had all the different kind of chocolate trees in there. And then we came out, and they talked about the products that they made. And they gave us some little cubes to play with, and you can make your own little meal, and you're supposed to be able to get 3 stars or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And then they're like, yes, this is what we do with the kids. Then we went over to another area, and they had some different things set up over there they talked about. And they're like, this is what we do with the kids. This is what we do with the kids. This is what we do with the kids. And they're talking about what they do with school kids when they come look at this stuff. Then they let us go to one area where we could sample whatever we wanted to. We couldn't put it in our pockets and stuff, but as long as you could eat it and you threw away your trash, you could have it, which was pretty cool because you could sample everything that they had if you wanted to. Then you had to go through the gift shop. So basically, this tour was really geared towards kids that they threw adults into, and you're basically paying money to go to a gift shop. I would much rather have not spent the money and been able to spend 4 or 5 more hours in Helsinki. Now, when we got back from that, we had about an hour, I guess, and then we all got back together to go do our farewell dinner. And we did the farewell dinner this day instead of the last day because a lot of us were going to Estonia, and that was an all-day event. So this was the last chance we would all be together. So we did the farewell dinner there. It was really nice. It's a cool little place in town, like right by the central square. So it was a great way to end the trip. And then we took this group photo at the end, right there in the town square. And it was just a really great way to say bye to everybody. When we got back to the hotel, a lot of us were just saying bye to everybody then because some people weren't going. And when we got back, everybody's going to go kind of in their own ways. But it was nice. And then on day 9, it was either a Helsinki at leisure, like meaning like there's nothing planned, you do your own thing, got breakfast at the hotel. There we stayed at the Holiday Inn, Helsinki City Center. When we came through and we were past it on the bus, I was kind of like, wow, we're staying here. But when we got inside, it was really nice. They have saunas, they have a bar, they have a restaurant. They have it is really nice. And it was centrally located. It's right by the train station. So if you're going to stay another day or two in Helsinki and just stay there, you could hop on the train in a matter of like 3 or 4 minutes of walking and get into the train and get the train to the airport. So it's a really great location for that as well. But we did the optional experience of going to Tallinn, Estonia. When we got to Tallinn, we had to take a ferry across, and it was about a 2-hour ferry ride. Everything is about 2 hours on a ferry unless you're doing it overnight. Now, when we got there, we got off and we met our local guide, and we went through town a little bit. We got to go to this museum. It happened to be closed for the day, but everything we went to go see was outside. You go around, they talk about the history of it, and when we go to the back side of the building, there's all these statues from when the Soviets controlled Estonia. So you got all these Stalin statues and all these other statues of communism and whatever there that got torn down and just put there as a reminder of, hey, we don't want this anymore. So unlike some places that tear down historical statues because they might hurt people's feelings, they set up a museum with all these statues as a constant reminder of the past and where you don't want to be in the future, which is kind of like ways you should look at statues in other places, but that's just me. So when we got done with that, we drove into Tallinn, got off the bus, and then we did a little walking tour through Tallinn. That place is phenomenal. It is like if you went to Tallinn and you got rid of all the cars and you changed your clothes to like 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, you could make it be like it was that timeline. Like the buildings there are so old and historical. The old town still has the wall around it. You can actually go up onto the wall and walk the wall from tower to tower. You can't do the whole thing, but you can go to certain areas. So it's really cool. There's this restaurant. I didn't catch its name. I probably couldn't pronounce it right if I tried, but it was set up to be like in the 1700s. The staff was wearing the 1700s clothes. It was like medieval times, but without the horses and big production. And their entire menu was based off of like the 1700s, right? I asked them, I was like, hey, can I have a Coke? Oh, good sir. Coca-Cola was not around during these times. I was like, oh, cool. Can I have water? There's water around, right? But the whole menu was like that. The spirits that they had were spirits that were available then. Very authentic. I needed to go to the restroom before we left so that I didn't have to worry about anything. Go to the restroom. It's literally a closet, like a water closet, with like a very dim light, like a candle light thing. Because back in those times, one, they didn't have bathrooms, and two, if they did, they didn't have lights in them. They would be candle lit. So they did very good on the authenticity of that period. But we did that right after we got done with the walking tour. We had about 2.5, 3 hours to kill before we had to go back to the ferry. If you do like to shop, or if you are one of those people that their wife collects Pandora, you can take about a 12-minute walk. Once you get to the McDonald's at the gate opening, about a 6-minute walk from there, there's a mall, and they got food court in there. They got a lot of shops in there, and they have a Pandora. Ask me how I know. Then we got back onto the ferry, 2 hours back. We got back about 8:30. Said our goodbyes to everybody because they had like 3 different groups of people leaving at 3 different times. And went back to the room, packed everything up, got up in the morning to take our bus to the airport, got dropped off, said our goodbyes again, and we got back into the airport. And from there, we flew to Krakow, Poland, to do some more European traveling on our own, which check out those videos because Krakow's pretty awesome too. But from start to finish, great time, great experiences. Last was phenomenal. Our bus driver, phenomenal, or coach driver, excuse me. They get mad in Europe when you call it a bus. It's a coach. School buses are buses. Motor coaches or coaches are the classier ones. So let's talk shipping. If you happen to be lucky enough to be married to somebody, or you yourself like to collect a bunch of stuff to send home because you really care about your friends and family and want to give them an experience of our experience, it's very hard to find post offices. You won't find one in Denmark. You won't find one in Finland. Well, yeah, you will find one in Finland, but we didn't need it. You've got, like when I went to Norway, I had to go walk about 3 miles to get to one. But when I sent the box home, I was expecting it to be expensive. It worked out to like $30, which is way cheaper than if I brought an extra suitcase and paid for every airport I had to go through for the extra bag. When I got to Sweden, the same thing. It was about $30. When I got to Finland, I didn't need to send anything out because we didn't have much time to collect stuff. But they had one right by the Holiday Inn, which was really cool. It was the closest one and I didn't need it. And then there's not one that you could have access to in Estonia. But basically throughout Europe, they've pretty much sold off all the post offices. And they operate out of grocery stores or convenience stores. And they don't really do well with packages. It's more like getting stamps and collecting letters and whatnot. So if you like to buy a lot of souvenirs, you really need to do some research. Because when I was in Amsterdam trying to send out some stuff too, the maps and the internet still show post offices at all these locations. They don't update anything. And I spent about, 4.5, 5 hours. I probably walked about 12 miles trying to find post offices and couldn't find it. So if you like to ship stuff home, just know that shipping options may not be readily available depending on where you go. If you do like Pandoras, we've got one everywhere. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Estonia. So they're there. Excuse me, no, not Norway. Was it Norway? Which one didn't have one? There's Norway. Norway. Yeah, Norway didn't have a Pandora. Sorry. Or is that Starbucks? I don't know. Starbucks, yeah. So Pandora was pretty much everywhere. Starbucks wasn't everywhere. So if you collect Starbucks mugs, but I really do highly recommend that if you are interested in Scandinavia at all, or the Nordic countries, that you take this 10-day capitals tour. And if you want to get more in depth into stuff, then you can just do like the Norway fjords one, and you just spend the week in Norway looking into fjords and get more in depth into the Norwegian culture. Currency, everybody took credit cards. Copenhagen had their currency, Norway had their currency, Sweden had their currency, Finland had their currency. I think Sweden was on the euro. No, they had their own currency. Now here's a tip. Finland's on the euro. And this is how I remember, because on the cruise ship I went to the casino and I took all my Swedish krona and I put it into the machines, and then I cashed out and it came back in euros, and then I got my euros so I could use that when I went to Poland. So there's a pro tip for you. If you got a bunch of Swedish money at the end, you can go to if you take this tour, you can run it through the casino machines, and then it cashes it into euros. So but I think that's pretty much it. It was a really great tour. Last did a phenomenal job. I have been phenomenally impressed. We've been on two. We did 28 days with Breck. We did 10 days with Last. And both of them, their knowledge, their passion, their commitment to excellence and ensuring that we had a great time, unparalleled to anything I've ever experienced before. And that's why I will continue to use Trafalgar. Now, if you want to book a Trafalgar tour, I can help you with that. I can help you do that really easy. And Trafalgar, they go all over the place, and then they have some subsidiaries as well, like Cost Saver, and Cost Savers go, like when I went to Japan, they didn't have Trafalgar, doesn't do a Japan tour, but their subsidiary Cost Saver did, so I did a Cost Saver tour in Japan. So I guess technically this was our third experience with the Trafalgar brand, and I have not been disappointed one time. So if you're looking to do some tours, get with me. I'll see what Trafalgar has to offer, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Until next time, I'll see you next trip. And thanks again, Lass. Appreciate your time.